Okay, so let's do, we're just going to do number 3 here on the review. So this is chapter 2, test review, number 3. Okay, so in number 3, it gives you what's called a cumulative relative frequency graph. You guys were good at this stuff on the quizzes. It seemed like you knew what you were doing. And so I'll just kind of zoom in here. We'll talk about it, and then I'll do the work on a separate paper. So it's talking about how much time is being spent using a computer during the previous week. The following figure shows a cumulative relative frequency graph of student responses. So just as a reminder here, you have hours per week. You have cumulative relative frequency as a percentage. So you're going from 0% all the way up to 100%. Okay, so for part A, it's asking what percentile does a student who used her computer for 10 hours last week fall? So 10 hours, you come down here, 9 to 12 is 3. And so it's going to be roughly right about there. And you go straight up to that value and then straight over. And so I'll just answer this one here on the paper. For part A, you would say approximately 70%. So 70%. Let's see here. It says following figure shows cumulative. Yep, approximately 70% would be good. Okay, for your answer. Okay, for part B. Kennedy, can you close that door, please? And be quiet. I'm trying to record. Okay, so for part B, it wants to know estimate quartile 1 and quartile 3. Okay, so quartile 1 is the 75th percentile, and quartile 3, 25th. Quartile 3 is 75th. Sorry, there we go. Better. So quartile 1, 25%, quartile 3, 75%. And as we go back to our graph, we're just going to go backwards here. Sorry about the zooming in and zooming out. I'm trying to make it visible. So 25% means you're going to start over here. So 25% will be right in between, and you'd hit right about there. And so you come down to right about 2. And then 75% would be up here. And when you come down here, looks to be, I'm going to call it quartile 3, right around 11. Okay. And then it says, are there any outliers? Well, how do we do that? Well, here's what we do. So we said quartile 1 was 2 and quartile 3 was approximately 11. So to find outliers as a review, what you do is you take quartile 1 and you subtract 1.5 times the IQR, or you take quartile 3 and you add 1.5 times the IQR. Okay, and so what that does is on your data set, this value here gives you this lower barrier, and this value here would give you an upper barrier, and anything outside of those values would be an outlier. Some of you were confused on this on the last quiz. So these numbers give you this window where it says, look, if you are below that, less than that, you're an outlier. And for this guy, the high end number, if you are above that, you're an outlier. So hopefully some of that visual will help you guys out. So let's find the IQR, which is quartile 3 minus quartile 1, which is 11 minus 2, or 9. Okay, and so let's find this number. That is quartile 1 minus 1.5 times IQR. Okay, so let's plug in our numbers. Quartile 1 is 2 minus 1.5 of 9. Okay, so if you type that in, you're going to get a negative number. You're going to get negative 11.5. And so if this is your number here, negative 11.5, are there any values that are smaller than negative 11.5? No, the minimum number of hours that you can use a computer would be 0. Okay, so there would be no low outliers. Okay, let's find this number. So we're going to take quartile 3, which is 11, and we're going to add 1.5 times IQR. So if you take 11 and you add 1.5 times IQR, you get 24.5. Okay, back here, right, let's look. Are there any students that use a computer for over 24 and a half hours? It seems like it. right? Because you have this value right here at 27, and you have this value here at 30. So there appears to be, right, 2 data points, right? All these individual data points here that are above 24.5. And so you would say 2 high outliers. And it looks like they're at 27 and 30. Those students with 27 and 30 hours per week. Okay, so question number 3 was a little bit more involved just because it's not only reading a cumulative relative frequency graph, but once you get quartile 1 and quartile 3, you could then answer questions about outliers. Okay, all right, guys.